Chapter 19. Anna awoke before Daniel and took some time exploring the little apartment while he slept. Situated on the east side of town where people tended toward lower incomes, its furnishings were modest and serviceable. It had a full kitchen with a topped-off synthetic tank, so they'd have no problem with food. A pair of energy-charging outlets poked out from the living room wall, but a lack of portable matter stations for refilling Daniel's PMC backpack disappointed her. About a quarter of the raw materials remained unused from the night before. They would need more. She supposed beggars couldn't be choosers, and it would be easy enough to go out and refill it, but they'd have to be careful since Guerrero would have agents out looking for them. A sleek black tablet lay on the kitchen table, and she connected her data lens to it. It contained details for 2 bank accounts, which she presumed were unregistered and owned by the agency in the same off-the-books manner as the apartment. She'd take it. Funds were going to be necessary. After completing her inventory, she sat down on the living room couch and checked the news feeds. The dominant story was the downfall of A Better Way and the hunt for Darren Monk, who appeared to be at large, though several other associates of his had been arrested. She shook her head in frustration, certain they were after the wrong people. The fog surrounding who was behind the arrests unnerved her. The reports never showed any footage, so no uniforms were shown that might provide an identity. This was third world, shadow government behavior, but none of the reporters ever asked any questions. She wished she could talk to Garrett, because ADTA ought to be driving the operation, but she wasn't sure how he would respond to a call from a fugitive. In truth, she had a pretty good idea of how he'd respond. Checking the time, she noted it was just after lunch. She had an overwhelming desire to contact Jason, but he'd still be in school, so that would have to wait. Instead, she figured she should see about refilling Daniel's backpack and getting a PMC for herself. She wanted to be prepared when they went after Robertson. Walking to the bedroom, she found Daniel still sound asleep, encased in a mess of covers, dead to the world. She bent over and kissed the side of his head before making a quiet retreat out of the room to the front door of the apartment. After ensuring she had the code to get back inside, she ventured out. The trip took her about an hour and a half, and she spent a significant part of it watching over her shoulder for anyone or anything suspicious. It wasn't lost on her that Carrie and Lucas had snuck up on her even while she'd been cautious. She first stopped at a matter refilling station where she took advantage of one of the unregistered agency accounts to pay for the raw materials she pumped into Daniel's backpack. Its weight grew as it filled, and she cut off the dispenser when it reached 2/3 capacity, which was heavy enough. No reason to make their lives harder than they had to be lugging around a full tank. After that, she found a nearby supply depot that sold a variety of MMD tools. Here she purchased a PMC belt for herself and connected it to her staff. Now she and Daniel could separate and wouldn't both be dependent on his backpack. When she arrived back at the apartment, Daniel had woken up and now sat in the living room enjoying a cup of coffee. When he saw her, he made a show of rubbing his back muscles, then stood up to greet her. "Morning, love. Afternoon." She smiled and laughed, stepping forward to embrace him, after which he wasted no time in sinking back into the couch. "I thought my legs would hurt, but I'm tired all over." Looking down, she smirked. "What do you expect? You never exercise, even though you're always invited." He groaned. I know. Believe it or not, that doesn't make it better. This running and climbing is your thing." She chuckled again. "Well, it's our thing now." "So I've gathered." He watched her take off the backpack. "You got a refill?" "Yeah, I imagine we're going to need it." As she said the words, she realized she hadn't told Daniel her plans. Moving to the couch, she sat down beside him. "We've got to follow up with someone. I've done a fair bit of research, but you should familiarize yourself before we go to his apartment. His name is Gary Robertson, and he works for a company called Radon Security." That I can do. What information do we have on Radon? They are some kind of security firm. He touched his forehead. Very smart. She cackled and punched his arm. Okay, big shot. Why don't you tell me more? Give me a minute. When I decide I can walk again, I'll set up at the kitchen table and let you know everything the net has to say. Take your time. As he adjusted himself in the folds of the couch, she noticed he seemed distracted. Daniel, what is it? He hesitated. I'm wondering what the odds are that this Gary Robertson is going to provide us with anything capable of clearing you. She closed her eyes. Daniel had voiced the worry that had been stirring at the back of her mind ever since she'd known he planned to break her out. I honestly have no idea. That's fair. She felt a desperate need to justify herself. If Robertson leads us to the real people behind the attempt on Shaw's life, it will prove I'm a team player. You think Jada will go to bat for you? She gave him a blank look and didn't answer. She didn't have an answer. He reached out and took her hand. You're doing the right thing again, aren't you? When he said it that way, a pang of regret pierced her heart. Would doing the right thing cause her family to suffer? If she couldn't exonerate herself, what did that mean for Daniel and Jason? I suppose I am. He squeezed. I understand. Maybe more than you realize. When I went to break you out last night, I did it because I believed in my bones it was the right thing. But there will be consequences. There always are. It should be easier to do what's right. I shouldn't feel so guilty. He lifted his hand to her shoulder and met her eyes. You'll feel guilty either way, but I trust you. If you say we need to track down this Gary Robertson, that's what we'll do. He broke eye contact and sighed. Speaking of which, I should start researching this guy. He began to stand, but she put out a hand to stop him. Before you do, I assume Jason's home from school now. Let's give him a call. He sank back into the couch. Yes, let's do that. Jason answered right away, and she could hear his excitement. Mom! The sound of his voice warmed her heart. Hey, kiddo, how have you been? I'm fine, I guess. I miss you. I miss you, too. Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes. Are you still in jail? Are you coming to pick me up? I'm out, but I can't do that yet. Your dad and I have to finish something first. For work? Yes, for work. Daniel addressed their son, sober and serious. Jason, have the police talked to you yet? Yeah, they came by the school this morning. They said to tell them if you tried to call me, that you'd broken the law. You need to tell them you spoke to us. I do? Anna heard his confusion. You do. They'll be recording the line so they already know, but you need to show them you're doing what they tell you to. Don't worry, I've encrypted our location so they can't trace us. But I don't want them to catch you. Of course not, but it's not your job to protect us. Anna broke in. Jason, honey, we love you. We don't want anything to harm you. I can't promise we will fix this, but we're trying as hard as we can. All right. Jason's voice was shaky, and she could sense his fear. She continued, hoping to encourage him. If we could be there with you, we would, but you're in good hands with Marcus. We'll keep calling as long as we can. Until they catch you? This was a punch to her gut, and she couldn't keep from crying. The tears fell with abandon, and for a few moments she couldn't speak. Daniel filled the void. Maybe. We can't anticipate what will happen, but whatever it is, it's not your fault. It's the fault of the people trying to hurt your mother. I'll pray for them. Anna's body shook at the thought of Jason's gentle spirit. He deserved so much more than she and Daniel could give him right now. You do that, kiddo. We should all do that. Daniel shifted on the couch and pulled her into him, and she buried her face in his shoulder. He shuddered, crying with her. Mom? no one had spoken for several seconds. She drew back into a sitting position and wiped the wetness from her face. "I'm here. I'm still here." "Okay, you weren't talking." "No, but I'm talking now. Why don't you tell me about your day?" The three of them spoke for a long time, and it encouraged her, brought her some strength. They started with school and drifted into other topics, including Jackson, Jason's friend Nevaeh, and some vids he'd seen. Anna and Jason took turns, and she almost believed they were all in one room together, laughing and sharing. Almost. Anna drifted into silence for a few moments, content to listen. As Daniel and Jason went on, the need to hug her little boy overwhelmed her. She put her arm around her husband and squeezed, and he returned the gesture. After the call, Daniel invested some time looking up information on Gary Robertson, but didn't find much more than Anna had. As they sat down for dinner, he shook his head. "He's remarkably challenging to pin down, past a handful of public records. Radon is the opposite, but to the same end. There's so much out there, it's difficult to find anything useful or relevant." "Must be his line of work. We'll have to get a little more hands-on with him, I'm afraid." They enjoyed a meal of Tex-Mex synthesized from a recipe she'd found in the Safe House Kitchen MMD programming. It didn't taste half bad, but the food at the cantina was better. They were about to clean up when the door chime rang, alerting them to someone outside the apartment. Anna froze and glanced at Daniel. He looked as alarmed as she felt. Who would be coming to this apartment? Only one person knew they were here. She checked the vid feed and saw a lone figure dressed in a hooded jacket, her head covered so nothing but her face was visible. Jada.
Daniel watched nervously as Anna walked to the door and let Jada in. He wasn't sure what to make of her showing up. The last time they'd talked had been outside the agency. At that point, he'd assumed she'd be hands-off once he broke Anna out, but her arrival at the apartment dispelled that notion. "I'm glad you two are safe." Jada stepped inside and shook off her coat as Anna assembled the door behind her. Anna gestured at the room around them. "Thanks to you, though I admit to being surprised this exists." Jada tilted her head in Daniel's direction. "You're the one to talk about keeping secrets." Anna's face drew into a hint of a pout. "This would have been useful a few times in the past if I'd known about it." "If you did, so would every other agent, and you wouldn't be safe right now." Daniel walked in from the kitchen and offered a weak smile. "You can't argue with that, hon." She pressed her lips together. "Fine then, let's have a seat. No point in standing in the doorway." The three sat down, the messy dishes momentarily ignored. Daniel studied Jada, still trying to process her presence. "When we spoke yesterday, I hadn't expected to see you again, or at least not so soon." "I can understand how you might have thought that. I wanted to ensure that if you got caught, you didn't consider our relationship ongoing." Anna raised an eyebrow. "This is ongoing?" "Certainly. I'm not convinced the agency is on the right track with a better way, and now my best agent is free to work the case." Bitterness rose in Daniel's chest. "I'm getting the feeling you used me." "Well, I only encouraged you to do what you'd already decided to, but successfully, and ending up somewhere I could find you." This was not a defense, he noted, only an explanation. It didn't help his irritation. Anna gestured around them. "Well, we're in your secret safe house. Do you have some kind of a plan?" "No, nothing specific. But Daniel said you had a lead. All I want you to do is pursue it." "You couldn't have gotten me out for that legally?" "I don't have that power. Guerrero works for the head of national security. Her authority is absolute." "So now we go looking for Gary Robertson with the agency trying to bring us in?" Jada frowned and gave the pair an inquisitive look. "Who is Gary Robertson?" "A guy who spent the last few months whispering in Ben Jacobs' ear. Maybe the guy who set him up with Zhao." "As opposed to Carmina Lopez?" Jada asked this with interest, not skepticism. "We've been working on an alternate theory where the letter from Lopez was faked to frame Darren Monk. We don't think a better way is actually involved." "I agree." Daniel broke in. "Anna, you need to tell her about Zhao and her weapons." Jada glanced at him. "Agents Yang and Ward told us of Anna's claim that Zhao can manipulate living matter." Anna pointed to her cheek. She can. That's how I got this cut. It's why I gave the sword to Daniel instead of bringing it to the agency. Jada turned to eye him, puzzled. I don't understand. He used the authorization routine from the sword to hack into the lockup, but you couldn't have anticipated he'd need it for that. What did you hope to gain by giving it to him that was worth such a big risk? Daniel leaned forward. I've been working on the assumption that Zhao and those men shared some of the same code on their weapons. It's normal for mods and programs from a single organization to leverage common modules with frequently used logic, even if those modules also include more specialized routines. This means the code for manipulating Lazarus particles might be on that sword, even though it's failsafe limited. In fact, I believe I found a module that has it. Anna's lips curved into an impressed smile. That's clever. He put his palms out but couldn't stifle a grin. I'm not certain yet. The whole breaking my wife out of jail thing interrupted my research. But if I can spend some more time looking at it, I'm sure I can prove it one way or the other. Jada tapped her chin thoughtfully. It seems to me a mod like that is going to be important no matter who Zhao works for. In fact, I don't think we can take her down without it. If you're able to build it, maybe I can use it to exonerate you too. Anna looked doubtful. Guerrero would allow that? I doubt she'll have a choice. MMDs that can manipulate human bodies scare everyone, and creating a protective mod to defend against them will swing a lot of people to your side. She'll be forced to go along. Daniel hadn't realized he might hold the key to their freedom. He'd only focused on giving Anna an important tool. The possibility excited him. I'd better get to coding then. Jada returned her attention to Anna. So while he's doing that, what's your plan with Robertson? I figured we'd go talk to him, find out what he knows. As simple as that? Anna shot her a sly smile. Well, maybe with a little reconnaissance first. If he did what you say, he's probably going to run as soon as he knows you're looking at him. You aren't in a position to stop him. We're not, but I'm certain he isn't the big fish. If he gets away, I can live with it as long as we can take down whoever is behind him. Daniel angled his head. Radon, his employer, right? Anna shook hers. I don't think so. Radon's a consulting company who does work for pretty much everyone, but a large portion of it is for the government. They're most likely a middleman. Jada's eyes narrowed. You think someone in the government is pulling the strings? I do. Who is moving so quickly on the letter we recovered from Lopez? It's all over the news, and Carrie mentioned it to me when she brought me in. This is way too fast. My guess it's the same people who drove Ben Jacobs to attack Shaw, and now are framing me. Jada nodded slowly. Guerrero informed us Monday morning. She didn't say who gave the order, but it wasn't ADTA. Are they taking part in the operation? Of course, but it came down from a level higher than us or them. Anna crossed her arms. What about Guerrero? Does she have that kind of power? Jada's face wrinkled in skepticism. It's hard for me to buy that. She is powerful, but where's the motive? And frankly, I'm not sure she's capable of that. She's perfectly capable of throwing me in a lockup with fake evidence, and her boss is Shaw's enemy. Political enemy. And we aren't a country that resolves political disputes with assassinations. And as for her treatment of you, you did assault 2 agents and break the law. Anna pursed her lips. You're defending her? Jada's head lowered, and she peered at Anna steadily. I understand her. You did get a little out of line. Anna's voice grew sharp. You didn't complain before. You didn't go so far before. When Anna didn't respond, Jada sighed. Look, I'm supporting you the best I can. I understand why you made the choices you did, but Guerrero hasn't acted out of line. She hesitated, then bent to one side and pulled a data lens out of her pocket, holding it out to Anna. I brought this for you. Anna's eyes widened, and she took the device, turning it over in her hands. An agency data lens. The edge in her tone had dulled. Complete with all your normal tools, things like access codes to disassemble locked doors and override manipulation protection. Anna's eyes flitted to her boss, a light smile crossing her lips. The peace offering had worked. This will help a great deal. Thank you. Of course, you're still my agent, and while it's a tad unorthodox in the present circumstance, it's still my job to take care of you. She rose to her feet and picked up her coat, pulling the hood over her head. But now, I need to go. I've already been here for quite a long time. No one knows where I am right now, but they can see where I'm not. After they said goodbyes and she left, Daniel stood up to move back into the kitchen and clean up. Your boss is really something, full of surprises. Anna followed behind. Yes, she is. More than she appears to most people. There's a reason I'd trust her with my life. I understand that. He allowed some negativity to enter his voice. I'm not thrilled at how she used me, though. He grabbed a plate, then took it to the kitchen MMD, placing it on a smooth black platform. The device came to life and dissolved the leftover food from the dish, rendering it clean and sanitized. As he reached to pick it up again, he felt Anna's hand on his shoulder. He turned and she pulled his body up against her into a passionate embrace. She had removed her data lens, so he took his off as well, fumbling as he put it on the counter behind him. She whispered softly, I'm sorry, love. As she held him close, he melted into her, her warmth flowing into him. He breathed in the scent of her hair, familiar and intoxicating. It's okay. His voice was low and tender, the injury from Jada dismissed. In this moment, everything was okay, and nothing mattered but the two of them, together. After a few seconds, he drew back and looked deep into her brown eyes. He loved her eyes. With a great deal of reluctance, he tried to ask the responsible question. So, when are we going to visit Robertson? A smile teased across her lips. Tomorrow, I think. I'm not ready yet, and I think we could use another day of rest. Then she moved forward and kissed him. Hard. Desperate. He kissed her back, his immersion complete as his lips locked with hers. He wrapped his left arm around her waist and pulled her to him, feeling her back arch as their bodies pressed into one another. His right hand caressed down the length of her back, moved to her leg, then drifted back up her side. He enjoyed the shape of her beneath his fingers, and the sound she made indicated she took just as much pleasure from his caress. His hand ended in her hair, and he pushed his fingers gently through it. He yearned for her, the ache of their time apart driving him with an animal-like hunger. All of him wanted all of her. She released his mouth, bit her lower lip, then whispered quiet and breathless, Let's go to the bedroom. He grinned impishly, leaned in, and placed his lips up to her ear. Your command is my wish. He tugged her away out of the room, the dishes forgotten. Like Robertson, they could wait until tomorrow.